Yeah, you guys have talked about those a lot.
Yeah, that is like the third question Alex is gonna ask you when he meets you for the first time.
Have you read the Dresden Files?
What's your name? What do you do? Have you read the Dresden Files?
So hilarious.
That is like the first conversation you're gonna have with him. Hello everybody, I'm Anna.
And I'm Michelle.
And we're the two mythical unicorns. And today we're talking about books that we read between 20 and 25 that had an impact on us, that were important to us. And yeah, let's get into it.
Alright.
I haven't really been able to put them in order.
Same here.
But this is what I read between those ages at some point. Yes. Half Bad by Sally Green. And this was the first time that I read a fantasy book where the main character is gay or bisexual, technically. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that the romance was so sweet and it was way more real than like the typical romance in fantasy YA books. This wasn't just cliche. It was really nice. So yeah.
More markers do that.
Yeah.
I am the messenger. This copy, look at my poor book. This has traveled with me very long.
And very far.
Yes, it has. I don't know how many times I've reread this book. This is still one of my favorite books of all time. This is about a illegal cab driver. Because I think he's 19 or something. He's too young to be a cab driver, but he lied to the people and got a job, which was what he needed at the time. And he stops a robbery. And then all of a sudden he starts getting these playing cards with like instructions on them to go and do things. And so it's a mystery, but it's also like contemporary kind of. Yeah, I love this book so much.
It really makes you think.
Yes.
And reflect.
Yeah. It's so good. Markus Zusak is fantastic.
Yeah. And then we have Sarah J Maas. Here I just have the first third of glass. But like Sarah J Maas in general, like the book stack should like give something away. It's not perfect. I do realize that, but I really do enjoy this, and it talks about a lot of different things and how you see yourself, and then it's also very exciting. So yeah, love these books.
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Well, this is essentially a modern classic. People talk a lot about this. In my mind, at least when I first picked it up, because Ats recommended it to me and Marie was like, you need to read that. And I was like, right, I'll listen to you, wise older people. They're not that much older than us, but anyways.
Are they really that wise?
Well, sometimes.
They have their moments.
And honestly, one of the reasons why this sticks out to me is because of that reason. It's because of them being like, that is a very good book and you should read it, and don't look at the pretentious people talking so much about it. Just enjoy the story. And I was like, right, that makes sense, because I always had a problem with like reading, I guess, classics in general, because there was so much like, you have to understand like the green light in the freaking
the curtains are blue because the author was depressed. No, they were just fucking blue.
They were blue. This was the first time that they were like, just enjoy the story. The story's still very good without all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Don't make it so hard.
Exactly. That was the thing. It's like, stop that. It's good. And I read it and I was like, it was good. So this was sort of like my entrance into like starting to read more classics in general, because I was like, right, that is how you could read them. Just read the story. Don't think so much about like the extra allegories and stuff like that. If the story's good, and it's good, and that's enough.
Yeah. And then I have Trudy Cameraman. This is a trilogy. This is the second book, because the first book is on adventures somewhere. Did not particularly enjoy this, but I do remember it very well. It was also because Alex read them as well, and he didn't really enjoy them either. They were like, we were in Croatia, we didn't have much to choose from. We had the books that we had brought.
Yeah.
But we disliked the book for different reasons and liked different things, because it's just very different from the other books that I've read. So yeah, that was very interesting to see how two different people look at how a person is behaving and how a person is being treated and how that affects like the rest of the story, and have completely different takeaways from it. So yeah, that's why this one was very interesting to me. And it's like high fantasy, if you can't tell from the picture on the book.
Yeah.
It's high fantasy, like it's magic.
it's magic. There's no magic in this.
No.
Well, there is magic, but not that kind of magic.
Yeah.
Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. Oh. This freaking book, man. I love this book so much. Like, I fell in love with this so quickly. I read through it like in a day because I was like, why should I put this down? I read every single Rainbow Rowell book since. I don't know if this was her debut. It could have been. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of these stories, like I couldn't tell you exactly what happens in it because it has been like 6 years since I read it, actually. So like, I remember the bigger themes and things, but I can't remember the details of it. So I should probably reread it, actually. It's so good.
Rainbow Rowell. Actually, I should probably take this one instead. Then I have Rainbow Rowell. Because Rainbow Rowell.
Yes.
Eleanor and Park was the first one that I read as well. Absolutely loved it. But I think this one is my favorite from her books.
Makes sense.
Because fantasy. Just love Rainbow Rowell. It is sort of like John Green. But not as sad.
No. It's the whole realistic approach, I think, that makes them kind of similar.
We say, while I'm holding a fantasy book.
Yeah, but it's like, it's the characters. Yeah. It's how they affect each other.
And the thing that is so interesting with this one is that it has the same feeling that her other books.
Oh yeah.
Just that she put some magic in it.
Yeah.
It's still the same feeling.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed this.
Neil Gaiman. I picked Stardust because this is still one of my favorites, and I did read this. I think I was younger than these ages, but Neil Gaiman, I got into him as an author between 20 and 25, mostly, because I'm a scaredy cat. And he writes a lot of creepy things. Stardust is very tame. Stardust is more like a fairy tale kind of thing. Yeah. There are a couple of like
fairy tale for adults.
Yeah, kind of. I spent so much money on this particular copy. I'm ridiculous.
It's very pretty.
It is.
It's a lot prettier than mine.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I was like, that's a beautiful one. I was like, I'm getting that one.
We have some issues.
Yeah. Just Neil Gaiman in general, I really got into during these ages. So that's why. But I picked Stardust because it's still my favorite one. It's the only one that I can be like, I can reread that because it's like, it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
The other ones are like terrifying.
And then we have Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
Because he just had to make the list.
Well, obviously.
Like, he's such a great fantasy author, and the world building and
the magic systems,
the plot and everything. It's just
damn good.
Yeah. Shame on me for not finishing this trilogy.
Yet. So sad about that.
Yet I will. This is just great.
Yes. This is on my list as well. So I'll just take this. Well, he's an adult fantasy writer. So it's not YA.
No.
Which is kind of, for me, quite far away from what I read mostly these days. But for some reason, when I was about 22, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read a high fantasy story. And ended up choosing Brandon Sanderson, and I can't remember how I probably found him through BookTube, actually. Probably through the Peruse Project, Reagan, who's incredible about talking about, she reads a lot of fantasy. So I'm like, that's where I get my tips from. Great. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so good. I reread this several times and it's 600 pages. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah. Moving on. The Falconer. And this is the first time I read a book that was set in the town where I was living at the time.
Ah.
So this takes place in the 1800s, I think, in Edinburgh. And I read it while I was living in Edinburgh. So that was very cool.
Yeah.
There are not many books written about the place we come from.
And the ones that are crime novels.
Yeah, so that was very, very cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool story too, but it was like there are things that happen on different streets, and then it was like I was walking to uni and I was like, oh, that happened there.
Cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was quite fun.
To something entirely different. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. This book is so good. It's so good. It's also like very interesting, like the formatting of this. There's pictures, there's certain pages with only 1 or 2 words. There's some pages where like the text sort of flows into the net, like that you can't see everything. It's formatted very interestingly. So he's like marked in his own book. I always when I flip through this, I'm like, who the hell has done that? And I'm like, oh right. It's a very good story, and it's the first time I've seen someone use the formatting of a book to tell the story that I can remember at least.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Then we have the Written in Red series by Anne Bishop. As you can see, this is not written in red, because Written in Red is somewhere else. And has been for 2 years. Yeah. I know it's safe.
Yeah, it is safe. It's just like tucked away, that's the problem.
Yeah. I just love these ones. And it is the way the system has, like, with the humans and the magical beings and how they are living together but separate at the same time, and all the different creatures and how they have built a society, and it's very cool. And also the story is very, very good.
God, this is heavy. So this happens to be the sequel, The Wise Man's Fear, but the one that I was gonna talk about was The Shadow of the Wind.
The Name of
The Name of the Wind, Shadow of the Wind.
Yeah.
God.
Too many books.
The Name of the Wind.
Yeah.
By Patrick Rothfuss. Well, I couldn't be bothered to lodge my copy here, and then she didn't have hers, so sorry. Now we have the sequel.
Yeah.
And the sequel is also very good, to be fair.
Yeah.
That is one of the main reasons why it's here, because this fantasy story is ridiculously good.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't read a lot of fantasy, so I'm very like selective with the stuff that I do choose to read. And I'm so glad that I was like, fine. I'll read it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll do it. And it was so good. His writing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, the story
It's
is
so fluent.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It would have made my list, but I was 26 when I read it. So, what are you gonna do?
Nope.
Yeah.
But yes, they're so good.
And then I have Robin Hobb. And I've only read the first trilogy because I got so mad while reading this one, because the main character is very mad and frustrated, and that was when I realized how much I manifest the books that I'm reading, and I actually had to take a break because I was becoming a very not nice person. The story is very well written, it is very interesting, but yeah, I just can't handle it because it affects me too much. Which also should talk about how great of an author Robin Hobb is.
Yeah.
That I can't read the books because I
Get
just
angry.
get angry.
Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe by Benjamin Elisanes. We've talked about this book on this channel so many times. This was also one of the books that I made you read.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you are gonna enjoy this.
Yeah.
If you don't, you don't have a freaking heart, honestly. Like, it is yours.
Yeah. I was like, I have that one.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I can't even explain. This book is so good for so many different reasons. Like, it's both the family relationships and how they affect each other
And the coming of age.
yeah, it's so well done. Like, and because they are 15 at the start at least, and there are some points where you're like, wake up, can't you see the thing? And then you're like, no, he can't because he's 15.
Yeah.
Like, can't you see what's happening? And then it's like, no, of course he can't.
And it doesn't understand.
He doesn't understand it yet, but that's
hasn't been there yet.
yeah, and that's the thing. That's the part. That's the beauty of it as well.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you can get not necessarily frustrated, because I didn't actually get frustrated with the main character throughout this story, even though sometimes I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Can't you see it? And then it's like...
It was more that you were rooting
yeah.
for them.
Yeah. It's like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. It's such a good book.
So good.
It just makes you happy. The story will make you happy.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
It's one of these stories. I'll never forget reading this the first time.
No.
It was so good.
And then I have The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. And yes, this is the latest one, and I am over 25 by now, by a couple of years. And this is so good. Like, there was one that came out this summer, and then this came out a few weeks ago.
Huh.
And it's been like 3 years since the last one came out, between that.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading Peace Talks, and I had forgotten how funny he is. And like, even in the darkest moments, he's just this sarcastic, funny person, and it's just a joy to read. Plots, and they are really good, and he takes in so many different characters, but he does it in a way that it doesn't get confusing. Like, he takes his time introducing each one and giving them a purpose and weight to the story. And then it's just, he is funny.
V.E. Schwab. Vicious. Because Vicious is the first one that I picked up.
Yeah.
By her. It's also kind of another one where it's like, it's adult fantasy, but it's not. It's like urban fantasy, I guess. Oh god, she's good. Like,
Yeah.
I've read every single, this was another one of those where I was like, right, that was a good author, let's read everything else. I mean, if you haven't read anything by V.E. Schwab, I don't know what you've been doing with your life. I love a lot of her stories have a lot of like sort of grey characters, like morally grey, which is kind of some of my favorite characters to read about, because they're not bad people necessarily, they're just sometimes like a little bad.
Willing to do things to
for the greater good.
yeah, or for themselves.
Well, yeah, Ambitious is definitely not for the greater good. This is literally about two men who, in their college years, decided to make give themselves superpowers, and they realized through like research that you have to die and come back to life.
Damn.
And then, as the story begins, Victor gets out of prison and is out to kill Eli, the other one.
Yeah, now I want to read it even more.
Yeah, you do.
I have no more physical copies.
Right.
The 10th I don't have here.
Oh, because it's in my apartment.
Yeah.
It's Laura Lam, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. My signed copy of False Arts.
Jesus.
It is a sort of sci-fi dystopian, and I didn't really read sci-fi.
No.
I went hardcore fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, to me it made no sense that people say sci-fi and fantasy or fantasy and sci-fi and that they are clumped together.
No.
That made no sense to me at all. After reading that one, I sort of understood it, because there was this feeling in that book that I got from reading fantasy books. So I realized that maybe there are different kinds of sci-fi.
Well, yeah.
And that you could try to just not read about aliens trying to kill people in space,
For
or
example.
robots coming to life. There are other kinds of sci-fi as well.
Yeah.
And that was also a standalone. And before that, and still, I read a lot of series and trilogies, but that one was a standalone and it still had all the components of what I'm looking for in a book. I found that very, very surprising, and it just made me happy. And also it's a very, very interesting story. Like, it is
Terrifying.
it is very exciting.
And my last one is Haruki Murakami. This is the first book that I picked up by him, which is called Colorless. Oh God. Tsukuru Tasaki and His Years of Pilgrimage. And I wouldn't say that this is the best book I've read by Murakami. However, it does have sort of a special place in my heart because partly it introduced me to Murakami, and partly it also introduced me into sort of Asian, well, probably Japanese, in particular storytelling, which I've gotten into a lot more in the last couple of years because I started reading Murakami. So I have a lot to thank this author for, actually. Oh, he's good. If you're ready for weird, he's very good.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And this is the last one in the series, at least for now.
For now. Oh God.
Because we've passed 25.
Yes, but we're not close to 30 just yet.
No, halfway. Halfway from 25 to 30.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so that was the last. And we've mentioned that there are some books that we've really enjoyed, but like I haven't started with Patrick Rothfuss and V. Schwab when I was 25. That came later, so I still love them, but it's not part of the era that we're talking about. So that is what we read. And if you had something special that impacted you, we would love to know. Maybe you can give us some recommendations. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, do that. And until next time, bye.
Bye.